So this is solving multi-step inequalities, and everything that we've learned so far is going to be applied in this chapter. So we have to remember that we have to get the variable by itself. So it's just like solving multi-step equations, but now we're dealing with inequalities. And you also have to remember that anytime you multiply or divide by a negative number, that you have to flip the sign. That is one thing that you have to remember when you're dealing with multi-step equations. So in this case, we'd have to get y by itself. So what we're going to do is we have to move that -7 first. So we're going to add 7 to both sides. So we're going to bring down the whole entire equation. So we have y divided by -6 is less than 16. Now, to get y by itself, we have to multiply by a -6. So because we're multiplying by a -6, we're going to flip the sign. So in this case, we have y is greater than or equal to -96. So now we're done solving because y is by itself, but we have to fill out our number line. So in this case, I'm going to put -96 in the middle. I'm going to put two numbers to the left and two numbers to the right. So I have -95, -94, and then I have -97 and -98. So because it is a greater than symbol, it's going to be an open circle. And I want numbers that are greater than -96. So it's going to face to the right because -94 is a number that is greater than -96. So how we're going to write the interval notation is we read left to right. So in this case, it's going to be a parenthesis -96 because we're not including 96 because it's an open circle, comma, and it's becoming more positive, so we're going to use positive infinity and then a parenthesis. So that would be our interval notation. This next one reads -3 minus 6 times 4x plus 6 is greater than -11. So our first step always is to get rid of those parentheses. So I'm going to distribute that -6 to the 4x and the positive 6. So I have -3 minus 24x, and then it's going to be a minus a 36 is greater than -111. I want to combine the -3 and -36. So I have -24x minus 39 is greater than -111. I want to get x by itself, so I'm going to add 39 to both sides. So I have -24x is greater than a -72. I'm going to divide by -24. So because we're dividing by a negative, we're going to flip the sign. So we have x is less than now a +3. Now, if this would have been a +24, you would not have flipped the sign, but because you're dividing by that negative, you have to flip the sign. So remember that. I'm going to draw 3 in the middle, and then I'm going to do 2 to the left. So I have 1 and 2, and 2 dashes to the right. So I want to put a open circle because it is a less than symbol now. So I want numbers that are less than 3. So I'm going to go to the left. So I'm going to write my interval notation with the parentheses, a -infinity, comma, 3, and then a parenthesis. We have two more examples. So we have number 3, which is 8x minus 3 is greater than or equal to 4 times 2x plus 3. So I'm going to rewrite 8x minus 3 is greater than or equal to. Now I'm going to take this 4 and distribute it. So I have an 8x plus 12. Now with these, I always want to make sure I move the variable first. So in this case, I'm going to move the 8x. So I'm going to subtract 8x on both sides. Well, if you notice, an 8x minus an 8x, you would have a 0. So you would just bring down the -3 is greater than an 8x minus an 8x would be 0, and you can't have 0 x's, so it would just be 0, and then a +12. Well, is -3 greater than or equal to 12? It is not, so this would be a no solution. Now, in this case, if this ever happens, you would not have to graph it because there is no possible way you could graph it because there is no number or anything that would make this equation or this inequality work. And also there is no interval notation because there is no answer. So you would just leave it as no solution and do nothing after that. This next one says 2 times 5x minus 1 is less than or equal to 7 plus 10x. So now this is having variables on both sides of the inequality. So it's just like solving with an equal sign or just solving an equation. So I want to make sure I distribute that 2 first. So I have 10x minus 2 is less than or equal to 7 plus 10x. Now I want to move the variables together first, so I get a minus 10x and a minus 10x. 10x minus 10x is going to give me 0, but I have negative 2 still left over on the left side, is less than or equal to. Now the 10x minus the 10x is going to cancel, so I have a 7. So negative 2 is less than or equal to 7. Because that statement is true, that means it's going to be infinitely many solutions. So it doesn't matter what you add in. So what number you put in, it's just going to make sense. So for this, you wouldn't have to write interval notation. You wouldn't have to graph because really it's saying that every number on a number line is a solution to this equation. So you would just leave it as is.